his availability, and I meet with some of the top prospects in the upcoming draft. All that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now and Inside the Rink. And I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly a part of the Locked On Network, where we cover your team every day. If you want to be an everydayer, all you got to do is follow along wherever you get podcasts or subscribe on YouTube as well. And the Sharks, busy leading up into the NHL draft, acquiring one MacKenzie Blackwood from the New Jersey Devils. Mike Grier has his availability, and I met with some of the top prospects. So a lot of stuff to cover in today's episode. But before we do that, do need to let you know that today's episode is brought to you guys by FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. So Mike Grier acquiring one MacKenzie Blackwood from the Blackhawks, not the Blackhawks. That would make a lot of sense. Blackwood with the Blackhawks. No, from the New Jersey Devils. And I know people are already like, what? MacKenzie Blackwood. Like, if you look at the raw numbers, it doesn't look very good, but I think this is a very, very potentially, I think it's a smart gamble, is what I'm trying to get to here. So I'm going to pull up the Blackwood numbers here right now. And you're looking at the numbers: 22 games, 893 save percentage, 320 goals against. Like, what? Those aren't pretty, right? Those are Martin Jones-esque. Those are what we basically saw from James Reimer and Kaapo Kähkönen. But if you dig into some of the fancy stats and some of that, I think there's something there with Blackwood. So last year he gave up 60 goals, expected goals against 59.14, just as a gentle reminder of what our friends Kaapo Kähkönen and James Reimer did. Granted, bigger sample sizes, but James Reimer had 147 goals given up, and then 135.69 expected goals against in all situations. Kaapo Kähkönen had 135 goals given up, expected goals against 110.42. So combined minus 35 more goals than expected. MacKenzie Blackwood giving up basically a goal more than expected in his 22 games, and a high danger save percentage of 746, which is pretty good. Again, as a reminder of what our good friends Reimer and Kaapo Kähkönen did. 764 for Reimer and then 706 for Kaapo Kähkönen. So, he's right there with the, kind of in that same ballpark there. And I know the New Jersey Devils were, up and coming fun team, but they were defensively not super great. And you look at, what really kind of, you look at Blackwood, and again, small sample size of 22 games played, but the team in front of him, you didn't really play super well, and he kind of played okay-ish during that time, especially if you look on the penalty kill, where the team in front of him was atrocious, to be honest, and he played pretty well in those situations. Now, the Sharks penalty kill is much better than the Devils. I don't expect to continue to see a top 5 unit that we've seen kind of the past couple seasons from the Sharks, but I still think they can be an above average penalty kill unit, especially when you have guys, the forwards like Logan Couture, and you have Nico Sturm, and, I think Oscar Lindblom and some of these other guys who've kind of, Steven Lawrence, you have some quality penalty killer guys there. And I think the system, is a much better penalty kill system from the Sharks, that kind of aggressive, staying on top of it, staying on top and making they're always moving and making the power play kind of have to go a little quicker than they want. So hopefully something like that will help MacKenzie Blackwood going forward. So this is a reminder. Here's what happened with one Kaapo Kähkönen, where the team in front of him played pretty solid defensively, and Kaapo Kähkönen was atrocious and shorthanded. Like I said, the Sharks were one of the better shorthanded teams, and Kaapo Kähkönen played like they were one of the better shorthanded teams in front of them. You look at James Reimer, kind of the defense played worse under Reimer, and he kind of played bad too as well. Shorthanded, the Reimer covered a lot of mistakes for the Sharks to not mistakes, but he kind of made the penalty kill look much better than they actually were. So with MacKenzie Blackwood, though, he is an RFA, so the Sharks will own his rights. The Sharks do own his rights. It'll be interesting to see what type of contract he gets, right? Because you look, the past couple seasons have not been very good for MacKenzie Blackwood. But if you go back to pre-COVID, he was a potential kind of goalie of the future in the making. That 2019-2020 season where he posted a .915 save percentage, 3 shutouts, and 277 goals against average on a Devils team that was that also was one of the 7 teams that didn't make the bubble. But since then, he really has kind of struggled. 902 save percentage in the bubble season. That season, I'm willing to throw out for most players stats wise, because shortened season, right? You're playing the same kind of 6 or 7 teams over and over again, and just a weird season. But then 21-22, 892 save percentage, 339, and the numbers a tad bit better this year, but I think there's something there underlying there for the Sharks with MacKenzie Blackwood. So, but back to the contract though, I think with him, his qualifying offer is north of almost $4 million. I don't picture him getting that. I could see the Sharks and him kind of working out maybe a 2-year, $3 million type of range. I think that's probably the budget I'm assuming Grier has in his head for going forward. So nothing long term, or maybe you just do a 1-year deal and kind of see how things go. It's not like the Sharks do have the cap space this season. If you do that, and then if things work out, you can figure out something long term this offseason, or you can trade him at the trade deadline, or just let him kind of go into next offseason, especially because you only gave up a 6th-round pick, right? A 2023 6th-round pick. I think this shows New Jersey was willing to basically get anything they possibly could for him. And they got a 6th-round pick. This is a type of deal where you're just like, cool, let's try it out. Maybe it's an Aiden Hill type of situation. Not that MacKenzie Blackwood's leading the Sharks to a Stanley Cup, but one of those deals where you look back and go like, really, that was it type of thing. And I think there's some of the underlying stats for MacKenzie Blackwood suggest that he could have an opportunity to perform better, and maybe just a change of scenery for a guy like this. So I like the trade. I keep taking swings on goalies. I've said it over and over, keep taking swings on goalies until you find something. And if it doesn't work out, you just keep trying. And, we'll get into the Mike Grier press conference here in a minute, but I think Grier knows he's got to continue to look for a goalie of the future, and finding someone who can be a stop, for a little bit at least, until the Sharks continue to develop some of their goalies and some of their players. I think it's a worthwhile swing. A 6th-round pick, who cares? That's whatever type of thing. And if you get, we'll see what the contract looks like, but I think it's a worthwhile swing for the Sharks. I really like the move for Blackwood. And if he's bad, guess what? You're going to be bad anyway, and it's probably going to help you get a top 5 pick again next year's draft. So if you want to tank, you just get bad goalies. That helps the tank better than anything that you could do. So before we continue, we talk about Mike Grier's press availability, and then I'll have clips, or at least I'll have Will Smith clip and kind of some of my thoughts on meeting with some of the top prospects with their media availability. So, but a lot of Will Smith stuff because, again, I think that is the guy. Do need to take a quick break. Talk to you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. So, we know baseball season is in full swing right now, and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers getting no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon today to join. Right now, I mean, I think you got to keep kind of riding the Giants. I know they've been playing really well as of late. I keep riding the Giants as best I can. And then it's always a fun bet with when Ohtani's pitching. You know, they usually have they'll set a number of strikeouts if you think he can reach something like that, or just betting on Ohtani to hit a home run feels like always a fun bet to me. So don't miss your chance to snag a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademarks used by permission. All right, so Mike Grier did have a Zoom availability to the media today. I was able to join that and kind of ask him some questions and listen to some of the stuff. And, I tweeted out a lot of kind of what he was saying. And I think you have to start with Erik Karlsson, right? Of course. And, he said, I'm not going to give away Erik Karlsson. And yes, they're working together. Erik Karlsson's camp and Mike Grier working together to try to figure out something to get Erik Karlsson on, out there to try to win a cup. But again, he's not going to give Erik Karlsson away for free. So it's interesting to hear that. He did talk a lot about how, there are some serious offers and there's some teams kind of just dipping their toes in, kind of checking in right now. So, I think a Karlsson trade gets done. I don't know the timeline. The draft, like I said, makes a ton of sense just because you have everyone there. Free agency on Saturday when the new league year starts, and again, kind of gives some flexibility for more teams as you actually have more kind of cash on hand, or your cap space kind of opens up type of situation. But I think though with the Sharks, especially at the draft, where picks don't matter as much at the draft, right? You kind of hoard these picks and got to try to get as many picks as possible and try to get the best pick. And then once the draft starts, people are just throwing picks out as often as they can. So, I'm interested to see what, there's, who knows what the trade will actually look like. Shang did ask Grier if the Sharks would be willing to kind of eat more money to try to get a better assets. But Grier kind of seemed like, well, that's still a lot of money that you're going to have to, delve out to a guy who's not playing for you anymore. So I think they want to try to get something solid back. And I think they're willing to wait right now. And Grier did say if Karlsson's on the team, started training camp and started next year, they'll be happy to have him as well, because Erik Karlsson's an amazing player and he's on his way to be a Hall of Famer. So some of the draft related questions. So it seems like the Sharks are pretty set on picking at number 4. They said they've looked at some possibilities of potentially moving up, and they looked at some possibilities of potentially moving back, but he said he'd basically have to be overwhelmed for a package to move back. So it sounds like they're leaning towards a center. So I assume it's going to be Will Smith or Leo Karlsson, and whichever of those players are available, I think is going to be a Shark. And I assume it's going to be Connor Bedard at number 1, Adam Fantilli number 2, Leo Karlsson number 3, and I think Will Smith is going to be your Shark at number 4. And it just makes a lot of sense to me, right? He he was asked about, kind of adding a 1C, and he said basically you can either draft them and develop them, or you can overpay for them in a type of trade situation. And he talked about where this draft is, if with the forwards, getting the best player available. It feels like you're going to be getting a center this year, and the Sharks are going to continue to try to draft best player available. But just so happens that the best player available for them, they think, is probably going to be a center. So I think he was very non-communicative about Michkov. Some guys did ask about him. I think it was Shang as well, was still kind of asking about Michkov and what do you kind of expect, and did you talk to him and stuff like that. And he was very quiet about it and didn't really want to kind of show his cards, which understand type of thing. So I think it's gonna be Will Smith and Erik Karlsson unless something crazy happens. Those are my guesses. Like I said, I think it's Will Smith at this point unless something crazy happens. So I did get to ask him about free agency a little bit, and if the Sharks would kind of weaponize their cap space, especially as one of the few teams that actually does have a little bit of cap space and not much in the terms of kind of long, big contracts that they need to hand out. And he said that is something that they're going to look into, but it had to make sense for the team, right? Whether it's getting back draft capital or, prospects. And I think it would be just for the Sharks. I think he wants kind of more of those guys who are gonna be ready to kind of contribute here in the next year or two to kind of pair with soon to be Will Smith, but your William Eklunds, your Bordelots, your Gushins, Robbins, Beasteds, kind of these guys who fit the same timeline, right? And you look at the Timo Meier trade, right? They got Shakir Mukumadulin, who's probably going to about a year. He's probably going to be an NHLer playing in the NHL by the end of the season. Fabian Zetterlund, young player, kind of those type of guys who are going to be NHL players sooner rather than later. I think that's what it, and another thing, a lot of people asked him if, are you going to try to be kind of aggressive to add free agents and stuff? And he said, no, like we're going to, they want to build this the right way. They don't want to block the young players. And I think we're going to see more of that this year, right? We're going to see more young players getting their opportunities. And I think last year was kind of protecting the prospects and protecting your William Eklunds and your Thomas Bordelots and making sure that you're not asking too much of them too early, right? Kind of the Doug Wilson, just throw them in the fire and see, or see if they're a witch, right? That used to be a running joke on Locked On Sharks. Throw them off the cliff and see who flies. Grier's very more like, let's slow process with these guys to make sure they're ready. But I think we're going to see some of the training wheels come off with some of these guys, especially guys like William Eklund, who I think is going to give every opportunity to kind of, take his opportunity and run with it. So, I expect more younger guys making an impact in the NHL much sooner than what we've seen, what we saw last year. And, guys like Gushin and Bordelot and Robbins, I wouldn't be surprised if these guys get a little bit of run in the NHL next season, especially if they have good starts to their seasons at the Barracuda, but I expect William Eklund to be top line, top 6, top line player for the Sharks coming out of training camp, because they don't really have anybody else right now. So, potentially, but Grier, was asked a lot of questions of, about the draft and about the free agency and stuff. And I think he's reserved on some stuff, but, he kind of, was kind of harped that this is going to be a slow process and we're going to do this the right way. We're not going to skip steps. And I like that from Grier. I think this is what the Sharks need, right? Doug Wilson did try, I understand Doug Wilson trying to kind of slap a Band-Aid on it and try to make a team that wasn't there, try to see if he could squeeze one last potential cup run without. And I think Mike Grier, he's pretty honest from day one, where you have to sometimes you got to take a step back to take 2 steps forward. And he realizes this is not going to be an easy, quick turnaround. And I think he's not going to say rebuild, but he is very much, this team is rebuilding. And I'm glad that they're just finally recognizing that this is the time to do it. So, but yeah, interesting. So I'm sure we'll hear more from Mike Grier after the draft and all that. So we'll have you guys covered for that. Plenty of draft stuff covering up on coming up this week as well. So as for the draft, did have a chance to talk to some of the top prospects, but before we get into that, do of course need to tell you guys about the Locked On NHL mock draft that we did. Make sure you guys are checking out our 2023 NHL mock draft special. Local hosts of the Locked On NHL channel have made their picks, and Noah's Gill and Hattie break down every selection of our 3-day mock draft event. You can find the episodes on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts as well. All right, so I was able to go to the top prospects availability. You had Connor Bedard there. You had Adam Fantilli. Erik Karlsson was supposed to go, but apparently his flights got canceled in Newark. And him and his family got in a car, drove 13 hours from New Jersey to Nashville to make it, of course, for draft day. And he got in Wednesday morning or Tuesday morning. My days are all screwed up. He got in Tuesday morning, and I think he was pretty much wiped out from that. Was not able to make it. So, but they had Ryan Leonard, they had Oliver Moore, Nate Janos. They had a bunch of prospects there, and got to kind of listen to some of them talk. But really want to focus in on Will Smith. So, Will Smith, pretty big size crowd around him. I was there for the entire Will Smith thing. So I was able to kind of, move in a little bit here and there. I got to ask him a question about the U.S. and U.S. national program and how it's continued to grow and produce some of these top players and what it kind of means to him. And our good friend Keegan, aka Halfwell Hockey, as you'll see in the clip, was also there. Got to ask him a question about just kind of his Boston connections and stuff like that. So I don't have the entire interview because it's 15 minutes and some of it's really hard to hear, especially because there's music playing and he's facing the wrong way. So I kind of clipped some of the best stuff for you guys here if you want to hear more about potential future Shark Will Smith and just kind of, his time in Nashville and his whole draft experience and all that fun stuff. So why don't you guys enjoy the clip?
For years, how long have you been waiting for what's going to happen tomorrow night? I mean, are we talking like 4-year-old Will, like hoping one day to be in the NHL, or what?
I would say 4 or 5. This was my dream. Obviously, every kid says that, but probably 13, I was kind of like, that's what I want to do. And now I'm here. It's a little weird, but it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, what's that like, realizing that is going to come to fruition?
Like I said, it's a little weird, but it's kind of fulfilling. But obviously, once you get picked, it's a whole new start to my life. And
that's a whole another thing that we lead up to this, but then there's all the stuff after just to get to then where you want to be. What's that process going to be like for you?
I mean, obviously the draft's a huge deal, but it's just the draft. Once you get picked, it's in the past. So I think after that, like I said, it's a whole new journey, and get right back to work.
The years prior.
Golfing this weekend. Are you looking forward to just kind of getting all this stuff behind you a little bit?
I mean, I'm trying to enjoy it, but it's obviously nice to go golf and kind of just relax and just be a kid.
What do you? The growth of the U.S. national team, you've seen a lot of more players drafted higher and higher each year. What does that mean to you to be part of this program that just continues to grow and get better and better every year?
It's really special. You see the NHLers that's been through the program. It's pretty unbelievable list. So I think it's an honor to play for US and to be here. Also going to wear that jersey today. It's pretty cool.
Well, what did Dan Hughes do for you these last couple of years?
He helped me so much. I think just my all-around game and even off the ice, if I ever wanted to talk to him about anything, he was always there. So I think as a coach, he was awesome, and as a person. So it's pretty cool seeing him get that the Rangers job.
In the 2 years before the draft, players become more and more categorized. This guy's going to be a top 20, a top 10, a top 5. How did you manage the expectation coming with this tag? For months, people said, Smith's going to be a top 5. How did you live with that?
I try not to look at it. I think play's over, so I think I did all I could, and in the moment you're not worried about it. So I think now it's over, and just see what happens.
You try to be cautious, not to be not to get deception if you slip maybe just a little, or do you think about that?
Not really. whoever wants me, whoever picks me, that's when I'll be happy. So I think whatever happens, happens.
There seems to be an X factor with that in Michigan. Everybody's trying to predict where he's going to go. Is it a topic you discuss between the top prospects?
Not really. I think it's a little different, obviously. I mean, we haven't met him, so I haven't met him at all. So I think probably see him the next day, I assume. So it's a little different, but
Ever seen videos or
yeah, I've definitely seen Instagram, stuff like that.
What does it say about your top line of the U.S. program, the numbers that you were able to put up, beating the records you guys have Jack Hughes, Austin Evans? What does that say about the three of you specifically?
I mean, it's obviously special seeing those guys. I mean, some of those guys are our idols, so wouldn't have done it without them. It's not a one-man line, so I think playing with those two made it a little easier. And it's obviously nice getting to go to practice and games with them.
Just being part of the clinic this morning, like what kinds of ideas is somebody in your position to get other kids involved in the game to overcome the challenges of cost, accessibility, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants to go to the game in the NHL too, so I think it's good to be out there and hopefully it motivates them to stick in the game. And I mean, they all love it, and we love it too. So, whatever.
You ever get any face-off tips from Perot's dad, Yannick?
No, he was supposed to come in, I think, but season was a little too busy, and he's obviously a busy guy too. But Gabe knows all the tips from him, so he just tells me.
Okay. Is Gabe pretty good at face-offs? I would imagine, being his dad.
Yeah, I mean,
He's a winger, I know that.
I didn't want to take any, I'd make him do it. So if I didn't want to take
You
one,
just have him do
on
it?
a power play or something, he'll take it.
Yeah, Yannick's like a guru.
Yeah.
Like he goes and works around with NHL teams.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed the Will Smith clip. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We'll be back for the draft. So we'll have reactions for every pick in the first round from the Sharks. So picks number 4 and 26 scheduled. There'll be clipping stations where I'll kind of talk about the Sharks picks and what I thought of them. And then there'll be a full breakdown after, on Wednesday night after the kind of my thoughts on it and the whole draft experience and all that stuff. And then we will have on Thursday night, whatever. We'll have a breakdown of what's happening, kind of the rest of the draft and get into all those Sharks picks and get to learn some of the newest Sharks prospects and, look at their scouting reports, all that fun stuff. So plenty of good stuff coming along from Locked On Sharks here in Nashville for the draft. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. The Instagram, plenty of behind the scenes stuff, plenty of, cool pictures of just me in Nashville and just all the cool stuff I'm seeing in Nashville. So make sure you guys are following that. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryHole. And until tomorrow, we'll have reactions to the Sharks' first round draft picks. So until then, bye, friends.